Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum and good evening. Yes, I am Dr. Sharifa here. Okay, I am actually here to actually help you out in understanding SBL and then helping you all to pass, hopefully. And I am actually currently from University Technology Mara and currently seconded at IPAC Education. And then I have 25 years teaching experience and more than 15 years teaching professional accounting students. And most of the subjects that I'm teaching for ACCA, I teach F5, P5, P1, P3 previously, and now teaching SBL. And for the CAT, I've been teaching all the MA papers, okay, FMA, MA1, MA2, FAB, FA1, FA2, FTX. And I'm also an A-star trainer for CIMA Malaysia. I'm also currently teaching strategic management for CIMA. So my qualification is actually PhD in Management Accounting, University of Technology Mara, Malaysia. Master of Accountancy in Curtin University of Technology, Western Australia. And an advanced diploma is actually from the Mara Institute of Technology, Malaysia as well. Right? Okay, I think you know the purpose of this particular webinar, that is to preparing you for your exams, and hopefully by listening this particular webinar, it will equip you with necessary exam skills and techniques. And I hope that it will increase the number of SBL passes for March 2019 exam. Okay. All right, so this is the overview of the topic, the area that I'm going to cover tonight. Okay, it will be SBL knowledge, topics in the syllabus, thinking process, the role, the task, professional skills, synthesizing, application, SBL examination question analysis to get yourself familiarized with the exam approach, examiners reports, all right, and then exam techniques. I'll be using September 2018 throughout this particular day 1 and day 2 webinars, and then we will move on to specimen 2 for the day 3, and then to look into a little bit of your December 2018 in day 4. As you see, this is the passing rates that we have for September 2018. All right, and December 2018 world rate is 45%, and then December is 48%. And for the institution that I'm working with, or where I'm currently seconded, is at IPAC Education. So far, our overall rate is actually 65% for September 2018, and then December 2018 is 68%. But my own personal passing rate is actually 70% for my own students. This is SBL knowledge, the topics in the syllabus that we are going to cover in day 1, the thinking process, the role, the task, professional skills, and as I mentioned earlier, September 2018 as examples used throughout this particular 2-day session. So when you look at this particular SBL knowledge and the syllabus coverage, you know that there are 9 areas that are being covered. Okay, 8 are the technical knowledge, where it covers from leadership, governance, strategy, risk, technology and data analytics, organizational control and audit, finances, planning and decision making, innovation, performance excellence, and change management. And finally, the 9th is your professional skill, okay, which this one I will be covering it separately. This is basically the leadership, okay, the areas that we will be covering. Okay, the one that you have in your syllabus, you have leadership. So these are, and governance, and these are the same, the subtopics that you will have inside your areas that you are studying. So I'll be moving on, okay, moving from one slides to another, and at the same time I'll go back to this particular slides. And as you see that, okay, there will be strategy and risk that I will also be, that is actually inside your syllabus as well. These are the details that you have. Okay, there are lots of things that you have to cover basically under your SBL. Okay, it's overwhelming. But the thing that you need to know, the connection between all these particular areas is that, okay, all these particular topics are they are interrelated. You are not going to look at this particular syllabus or the topic in isolation. Why I say that is that because when it comes to SBL, you need to be able to integrate all this particular knowledge together. Okay, let's go back to that particular page 9 that we had when we are covering the leadership and governance. Okay. One thing about the leadership and governance, when you look at this particular chapter, they are talking about what? Leadership. They talk about qualities, leadership and organizational culture, professionalism, ethical codes, and public interest. And when you look at governance, these are the areas that you are covering. All right, so basically this is what you have, all right, under your governance. Okay, when it comes to this particular leadership, all right. Okay, let me just show you this. Okay, when it comes to leadership and governance, the thing that you need to have in back of your mind is that how are these particular chapters, okay? For example, how are these chapters, all right? How are they connected together? You can't just be seeing leadership as it is, like looking at qualities of leadership only, and you can't just be looking at governance or what are agency theories, what are stakeholder analysis, and without being able to put these two things together. Because in SBL, you are supposed to know the relationship between these particular chapters. Because as I move on, all right, you will see that, okay, when it comes to leadership, okay, the things that you need to know under leadership is that, okay, when a person, all right, are being appointed as a CEO, so that means he's a leader. Okay, when he's actually a leader, okay, definitely he has his responsibilities. Okay, he's the one who's going to set the direction of the organization. So when he sets the direction of the organizations, he knows how to actually bring his followers towards that particular direction. And in moving into that particular direction, it has to be moving towards the right way. So in this particular case, you need to be able to know the relationship between stakeholders, governance, and strategy. Okay, let us put it this way. Okay. Okay. If I were to put here, all right, stakeholders. And then I have another, which is actually governance, which I will put here. And then I will have also strategy. What's the relationship between this and this? Stakeholders are the one who are defining the purpose of the existence of that particular business or organization. And the purpose are reflected in their mission, vision, values, and objectives of the organization. All right. And when it comes to governance, okay, under governance, okay, you also cover ethics. And this governance and ethics are the one that guides the translation of the purpose into strategy. What it means here is that the stakeholders who actually define the purpose have already reflected in their mission and vision, and they are the one who are actually going to achieve that particular strategy. Okay, they want someone to achieve that particular strategy for them. Okay, that's where the governance come in, because when you are small, okay, in any organization, when you start small, okay, you will be the one who's going to do everything. All right. So you are the one who contacts the supplier. You are the one who's going to be the seller. You are the one who's going to deal with the customers. So as you grow, okay, you need helpers. Okay, the helper, the people who help you in the business, okay, will need to actually do the business just like how you are doing. But as you grow bigger and bigger, all right, you will not be able to actually do the things alone. So you need to actually have many people helping you out. So when you have many people helping you out, as you want to actually achieve your future direction that is moving towards the strategy that you wanted, that means to make your business grow bigger, all right? So the workers that you have in this particular organization with you need to be monitored. You want to make sure that these people do business just like how you are doing it. So because of that particular reason, you require governance to be in place. And that's the reason why there's an agency relationship coming in. All right? Why there is an agency relationship coming in? Because there's a principal that you as the principal just now, all right, appointing your helper just now to do the work on your behalf, because you are not able to actually do it anymore. Because you have to see your business in a bigger picture. You have to focus on your core to move your business to become bigger. So that's the reason why governance comes in. That's where you talk about whom. Because when you appoint someone, you wouldn't know whether that someone that you appoint will actually truly do that particular business on your behalf. All right. So that's the reason why governance comes into the picture. That's why you see that as business grow bigger, they have reporting to stakeholders, they have board of directors, and they have public sector governance. Okay, these are actually fulfilling the principle of agency relationship just now, because why? Shareholders are not there to do the business, so they have to appoint someone to look at the business or watch over the business on their behalf. So that's where the board of directors coming in. All right. So when you look at this, remember the person that you are appointed, they are the leader in that organization. For example, CEO that has been appointed. So he has his responsibility, all right, to set the direction, okay, according to what the stakeholder wants them to do. So indirectly, we will see that, okay, this particular leader, okay, must actually possess a necessary qualities to ensure that they are able to build up a good culture in the organization. You wouldn't want to have leaders who actually teaches their subordinates or employees with unethical conduct. So leaders must have good values, okay, good ethical conduct, so that they are able to bring the whole organization towards the direction that the stakeholder have already said earlier, where they have defined it in the mission, vision, values, and the objectives. So if you have any question, okay, you may post the question. All right. So the next thing is strategy. Like I mentioned just now, if you notice the one that I've already drawn there just now, all right, you have stakeholders, governance, and strategy. So this is where strategy comes in. When you look at strategy, it cannot be looked as just like, oh, it's just a simple concept of strategy. It's a direction, but every direction requires a mechanism or elements that supports your direction. That's the reason why you learn on the concepts, the environmental issues, the competitive forces, the internal sources and capabilities and choices. And remember, when you look into strategy, strategy is about future direction. So strategy talks about the future of the organization. So when it is future, it is full of uncertainties. When it's full of uncertainties, that's where your risk comes in. All right, so that's the reason why you see in SBL that you have on top of strategy, this is your core area, and you have others like leadership, you have governance, and you have risk in the picture. Why? Because it has to come together. Because you cannot look at strategy in isolation, just understanding the technical knowledge of strategy. You need to know how this particular strategy are related to other areas. Because when strategy is future, it means it's uncertain. Remember, if it's uncertain, that means what? There's risk involved. Same goes to technology and data analytics and organizational control and audit. Why are these things inside your syllabus? You must remember that, okay, if you realize that in your strategy just now, you saw that there are what? You have this. What are these? Your competitive forces. All right? You're talking about your markets, things like that. Okay? And then your internal sources, you're talking about capabilities and competencies of organization. We're talking about resources. So if you have resources, resources needs to be managed. In order to manage your resources and safeguarding all your resources and competencies, you require a good organizational control and audit. Okay, that's why you have this inside your SBL. Because if your resources are not being safeguarded, then it will not be easy for you to move towards your future direction that you wanted just now. So when I mention future direction, I'm talking about executing your strategy, all right? Making sure that you achieve your objective. And bear in mind, you will have your mission in place, vision, values, and objectives that actually guides you towards the direction that you want. All right. And on top of that, the journey towards that future direction require you to have your resources and competencies. And at the same time as well, you will have like, all right, technology and data analytics. Why do you think that this is actually in SBL areas, in SBL topics? Because these are the areas that may help you to create some values. Okay? It enhances some of your processes. Okay? It enhances the way that you do things in your organization. It helps you in increasing your revenue if you are able to use it accordingly. All right? It helps create substantial growth. So instead of having a consistent normal growth, by embarking into this particular technology and data analytics, you might be able to make sure that your company grow bigger. For example, okay, if let's say previously you have a bookstore, okay, you have a physical store selling your books, but nowadays with an internet, you are able to sell books online. So indirectly, how it helps to increase your revenue in such that instead of just having customers around your physical store, you are now able to actually have customers around the globe. Okay, so once you have more customers coming in buying from you, that means you will be having more revenues. But if let's say the way that you're going to use this particular technology and data analytics differently compared to others, that means you are able to create a competitive advantage. What are competitive advantage? You have to remember that competitive advantage, okay, is where you are able to be above average. That means you have resources and competencies that enable you to move towards your direction, and among the competitors you are actually the best and your revenue is actually the highest. All right. Okay, basically you also have areas like finance in planning and decision making. What are these areas for? If you still remember, okay, if you can recap what you have learned previously in your fundamentals, for example, like F5, F7, and your F9, okay, you may need to actually recap some of your knowledge in these particular areas, the skills that you have acquired there, because these are the ones that will be tested again, okay, indirectly in your exhibits, all right? So you may need to be able to use those particular financial information again. Finance in planning and decision making is actually, okay, talking about your resources that you have, especially when it comes to money, where you are going to get your money. You talk about, if let's say you want to pursue with your strategy, you need to have some fund, at least a little bit of money to pursue it. If your strategy is a huge strategy, that means you might need a lot of funds. So you might need to think about the financing structure, whether you want to go for equity or you want to go for debt financing. So these are the things that you may need to actually look at. All right. So because why? Because you need to see whether you have enough resources for you to move towards the strategy that you wanted. So sometimes you may have cost and management accounting data that are being given to you for you to analyze, like variance analysis, all right, where you have budget, how far you have deviated from your original plan. So these are the things that you may have inside the finance in planning and decision making. Okay, innovation, performance excellence, and change management. Okay, once you have your strategy, okay, you have your choices, it's time for you to execute it. All right. So basically, when you execute it, you need to have, all right, a medium, something that actually help you to execute your strategy effectively and efficiently. Definitely, things are not perfect outside there. Okay, you'll be affected by a lot of noises outside there, things that may affect your journey towards the direction that you want, but there's always way for you to actually make sure that you move towards the direction smoothly. That's where you will look into this innovation, performance excellence, and change management. You learn about what? Organizing. You learn about disruptive technologies. You learn about talent management, performance excellence, and how to manage change. You learn about innovation and change management, and you learn on leading and managing projects. So basically, these are the mechanisms that enables you to move towards your direction. We are talking about executing your strategy. All right. So when you look at those SBL knowledge, the syllabus coverage that you have, basically you will have leadership and governance here at the top. All right. And then things that supports your leadership, governance, and your strategy and risk. These are the two things that is actually in the picture when you look at this. Okay, and then you look at this just now. All right. If you still remember that particular diagram that I drawn, okay, where you have stakeholders, you have governance, and then you have your strategy. All right. So basically, okay, leaders who can lead well can actually help you to execute the strategy well and enables you to move to your future direction. All right. So along the line, in pursuing into your strategy, you must always remember that there's always risk involved, which must always be assessed and mitigated. Okay. Even if sitting here now, okay, listening to your webinar, there's always risk as well, all right? Because why? There's always uncertainty, okay, that surrounds us, and that's the reason why you need to actually look at risk. Because there are always latent risks around. You will only realize it when it happens, but before it happens, you may need to anticipate what may be affecting your organization if you are moving towards that particular direction that you want. So every time I mention about the direction just now, I'm talking about the strategy. All right. So in moving towards that, leaders is important, and at the same time, governance. Why governance is so crucial is because of, all right, governance talks about good management. You need to have good management. You need to make sure that the leaders in your organization do not have conflict of interest. If they have conflict of interest, then it will definitely baffles your journey towards your direction. Why? Because they are busy in getting what they want. Instead of actually working towards that particular direction, they are also thinking of what they are supposed to be getting as well. In order to avoid that from happening, that's where you may want to have goal congruence in place. All right. And to support you, all right, that's where you have, that's where you have all this supporting topics. Because all these particular activity topics that you have from E, F, G, and H actually helps you to achieve or moves towards the strategy that you want. This is the execution phase. Okay, when you execute, you may want to use IT, or you may need to have a better control of your resources, and you may want to think of financing. And you may also think of a project management, for instance, to actually be used to execute your strategy. And at the same time here, you will have professional skills. What are these? What are professional skills? These are the 5 skills that's required by ACCA, all right? For you to be able to demonstrate, okay, in translating your syllabus coverage just now, okay, using the tasks that are required for you to do. Okay, we'll go into details on the professional skills later. So basically, you'll see that these syllabus are all related, all right? As we talk about organizational control and audit, there's always risk involved and there's always money involved. That's why you have to look into finance as well. Because putting internal control system in place, making sure that you follow the right procedures, all right, will require some money. Okay, you need money to do that. A simple example, okay, if let's say you want to put in place segregation of duties. Segregation of duty means what? You must have different people doing different jobs. Okay, instead of just one person doing many jobs. So if you have one person doing many jobs, perhaps you'll just pay that particular person a salary. Only one salary for one person. But if you require to have a segregation of duties, you might have several people doing the different job. Okay, the job that's being performed by one person just now is now being broken down into several people doing it. So when you have many people being employed, it means money. You have to pay them at least some basic salaries. All right. And then you have strategy. Definitely strategy is tied up with all other areas as well. Finance, definitely. Organizational control and audit, definitely, because you're talking about taking care of your resources. To execute, making sure you are able to translate the purpose, okay, of your stakeholders and becomes a strategy. You need a leader to do that. All right. So that's where leadership is crucial. All right. And then You also have technology and data analytics that helps you as well, governance and innovation. So when you look at this particular web, you'll see that each of this particular area are interrelated. Okay, you cannot just look at risk and think about risk and you just write your answer only on that particular risk. Okay, you need to know how these particular areas are connected. The thinking process is very crucial because the moment that you get your exam paper and the moment that you look at the overviews, all right, you have to start thinking. All right, as you look at the particular overview, why you need to start thinking is because you need to know what are the topics that are being actually tested in that particular paper. All right, so by looking at the overview, you'll be able to actually gauge what are the areas that are being tested and what are the possible requirements that you might have, okay, after you have read your overviews. Basically, the way that you think, you must always think of how and why the topics are related and connected. For example, like leadership related to strategy, like I mentioned to you earlier. So these are some of the examples. For example, all right, if you look at this particular overview, what does it tell you? What do you think, okay, would be the possible areas that are being tested? Have a look at this. This is actually your overview for the December 2018 exam. So when you look at this particular overview, roughly it tells you on the areas that are going to be tested. For example, all right, and it also gives you the background of the company. And remember, this paper is about application. All right, when they talk about application, it means that you have to look at this particular topic in the context. Okay, for example, they're talking about here. Oh, I can highlight it. So perhaps maybe I can just circle it. All right. My apology, because I used to use my iPad, now I have to use my Mac, so it's kind of not as handy as iPad because I can use pen for that. Okay, you see the background of the case study is about hotel. So they talk about what? This is a listed hotel chain. So if it's a listed hotel chain, it should tell you something about the background of this particular company. All right. Why? Because you know that, okay, in this particular listed hotel chain, you know, there'll be shareholders, things like that. And it's located in a country called Dylan. And they did mention about this country is a developed economy. So roughly it's telling you the background of this particular hotel in this particular country. That means they have a strong growth in this particular country. All right. And then they talk about what? Competitive advantage. Definitely this is something that you have learned. All right. So at the back of your mind, when you talk about competitive advantage, what does this tell you? Okay, it is something that this particular hotel is actually having and enables them to actually compete in this hotel market. Okay, and enable them to actually get high revenue. So basically the competitive advantage that they have is on this particular strategy, pricing strategy. All right. So definitely you need to know a little bit about, you know, what competitive pricing strategy is, maybe a little bit on what they're talking about competitive advantage here. Okay, remember they're talking about, they're trying to attract what? no frills. So this is talking about strategy. So they talk about what they have, okay, where they are located, and then at the same time, all right, they're also talking about being the largest hotel, okay, branded hotels, okay, not just that, it is now what, largest, okay, branded hotels, what else that they mention here, all right, they did make investment in web technology. Perhaps you may need to think of the technical knowledge in IT, okay, the technology and data analytics just now, perhaps those any areas in those particular topic might actually help you, all right? So this is some rough idea on the areas that are being tested, okay? Here they're talking about highlight values is staff, okay, has strongly committed staff development and retention. So it's about human resource, all right? So not just human resource. Okay, we talk about human resource. If you can remember under the innovation, the enabling success, they're talking about talent management. All right. Perhaps you may want to actually look at this as well. All right. So you are a senior manager, as a senior business analyst. Okay. Basically, they're giving you your role, and then you are supposed to be reporting to whom. And from this particular exhibits, all right, it tells you as well the possible areas that are being tested, the possible requirements that you might have. They give you a chairman statements talking about on the performance. Perhaps you may want to, they may ask you on the analysis, all right? And they talk about Zealand in the hotel industry report, maybe some comparisons that you have to do there, okay? Because by reading this particular overview, you wouldn't know yet what are the requirements that are being tested here, all right? But at least when you read, you are thinking, or possibly they may ask this, they may ask that, so you have to start thinking from the beginning, all right? And then this is basically the Dealand daily newspaper news articles. Usually there will be the background about this particular country, all right, where highlight is in, and they talk about an extract of senior management team briefing. Okay, you might gauge that. Okay, there must be certain information that you may want to get from here, but from here you may not get any idea yet, right? But you will have board meeting minutes. Usually in board meetings there'll be some resolutions or some discussion about certain issues, so it may actually help you in that sense. So basically when you look at this particular overview, it tells you the possible thing that may be tested, okay, after you have read this, the requirements. At least you can gauge something. It wouldn't be much of a surprise for you, okay, when you read the requirements. Okay, this is the kind of thinking that you must have. So if you have any questions, all right, you may want to have some questions here. Okay, you may post me any question and I can actually answer in the between, all right? Okay, if you don't have, then maybe we'll move on to the next one. Okay, just now we talk about all this particular thinking process, all right? And if you notice that, okay, SBL is also about understanding the role. Because why? When it comes to SBL, it's about workplace that are actually being put on paper, all right? So the workplace environment, the tasks that people normally do in this particular workplace are actually being put in a paper in a form of a case study. So that's the reason why you need to know your role very well. And if you don't know who you are in that particular requirement, then you wouldn't know what to do and you wouldn't know what output that you are supposed to be producing. All right. So at the same time as well, all right, understanding your role will actually help you in your tone of writing. What kind of sentence that you're going to use, okay, when you fulfilling or trying to perform your task. So if you know your role, then it will be easier. For example, financial controller, if you are able to imagine the task of a financial controller, then it will be easier for you to perform the task when you answer the requirement of the question. All right. So basically, you need to know that this particular financial controller, what they do is, some people call them as comptroller, all right, COMPTROLLER. What do they do is they lead accounting executive in an organization. They provide financial leadership, okay, and they are the one who actually form accounting strategies. So basically, if you know roughly their role, and once you are given that role in a requirement, so you'll be able to actually imagine the things that you are supposed to be doing. Okay, at least it will be easy for you to put your thoughts together in your writing. Same goes to management accountant. If you don't know what their tasks are, all right, you know what they are doing, so then it will be easier for you to actually anticipate the kind of analysis that you are supposed to be doing, okay, if the requirement asks you to analyze. Because by understanding the role and by imagining that that's what your task is, it would be easier for you to actually understand the requirement better. All right. I always tell my students here that, okay, the role is actually asking you to use some imagination, as if you are the actual financial controller in that organization, or you are the actual management accountant in that organization. If it's you, what do you do? If you are an auditor, if you know your role, then you'll know what you're supposed to be doing, what kind of output that you're supposed to be giving. All right. So that's the reason why, okay, in your SBL question, you need to know the role, because in every requirement, okay, there'll be roles for you to play. Sometimes you may be playing the same role throughout, or sometimes you may be playing different role and you have to change your hats. At one time you become a controller, financial controller, at one time you may become a management accountant. So it's good for you to actually find out what they do, all right, and then not just what they do, the kind of output that they produce. Basically, it would help you, okay, to understand your role when you are given the requirements. Okay. The next part is synthesizing in SBL. What is synthesizing in SBL is, okay, you should be able to integrate your knowledge. Remember the technical knowledge that you have, okay, all the 8 chapters that you have in your syllabus, those are your technical knowledge. Technical knowledge is just a technical knowledge that doesn't give you marks in SBL examination. If you were to answer the requirements without applying it to the case and just merely putting down your technical knowledge from what you read from your text, it doesn't give you marks. You're not going to get any marks for it. All right. So you need to be able to apply your technical knowledge, okay, in the context. So when you answer the examination question, it has to be answered in context. So what it means by synthesizing in SBL is your ability to integrate the knowledge, that means the technical knowledge from your syllabus coverage, chapter 1 until the 9 that you have just now, all right? With logical reasoning, yes, there are times that you may, not there are times, most of the time that you may need to be able to use some common sense. I do call it as logical reasoning, because you need to tie it up with the technical knowledge that you have learned, all right? With some logical sense, and you have to apply it in the context. When I say apply it in the context, it means in the context of the case study that's being given to you. All right. So you should be able to use the knowledge, technical knowledge, from several syllabus areas. That's why I say that, right, you need to learn how to integrate those areas. Okay. Using those areas, several syllabus areas together, okay, when you are addressing the case study issues, and you may need to suggest possible solutions or alternative solutions that are related to that particular case study. Sometimes when you read on your technical knowledge, okay, they will give you some possible suggestion for certain things. But not all those suggestions that you learn technically will be able to be used in suggesting possible solutions or alternative solutions in the context of that particular case study. A simple example, all right? Let's say you know the advantages and the disadvantages of certain mechanism, all right? For example, okay, as simple as the areas of using diversification, all right? Whether you are going to go for diversification or whether you are going to go for market development, you need to know at least the advantages and disadvantages of this particular strategy. But the one that's being spelled out in your technical knowledge will be a general advantage and disadvantage. And these particular general advantages and disadvantages may not be the right advantage and disadvantages in the context of that particular case study. So you may not be able to use it. So you need to actually look at the one that are relevant to your case study. Perhaps later on, okay, once we go through our September 2018 questions, you'll be able to see what I meant, right? And another skills that you may need to have is to weave different points together and make some sense out of it. Sometimes you have your points, but how do you connect these 2 points together and build up a sentence? Okay, not just simply building up a sentence, but building up a sentence to answer the requirement of your question. I have my students who always tell me, Madam, I have these points here, but I don't know how to put it together. But this is something that you have to learn how to put it together. And that's why the thinking process the thinking process and the ability for you to look at the integration of the topic areas is crucial. Because once you know that, okay, the areas are related, then you will be able to see whether your points that you have are actually able to be put together. All right. When I say weave, that means you're putting 2 points together and make a sentence out of it and able to explain something. All right. So it makes sense. And in synthesizing as well, all right, you must integrate the knowledge, logical reasoning, apply it in the case study or in the context. And to do this, it requires you to understand the task assigned, action to be taken, that is from your question verbs, all right, and the professional skills examined. All right, so you have to look at this together. And your requirement for your case study will definitely have this in place. Your requirement will require you to integrate some technical knowledge and will sometimes will require you to have some logical reasoning inside it, and definitely all the time wants you to apply it in the context. And for you to be able to do this, you need to understand the task assigned to you, all right? And not just the task assigned to you, all right? You need to also know the roles that you are actually having in that particular case study. And you need to know the action that you are supposed to be taking, that's the question verbs, and the professional skills that are examined so that you will know how to write. All right? So let's say if they ask you to discuss, and then the skills that's been given to you is skepticism skills, the way that you are going to write your sentences and discuss, okay, must reflect the skepticism skills. Okay? And there are times where you find that the question still asks you to discuss, but the professional skills that actually being tested is a commercial acumen. So the way that you're going to write and discuss, okay, should reflect commercial acumen skills. So it means that the professional skills actually will tell you how you are going to write your answer. When you want to execute actions that you want to take by using the question verbs, the way that you're going to put your points together, it has to be put together, okay, in a way that it reflects your professional skills. So basically, this is a simple diagram. It's like, okay, all these pieces that you have learned together, this is your case study, this is your knowledge, all right? Okay, this is your case study, for example, all right? This is your knowledge that you have learned, and then this is actually the tasks. These are the verbs that you have, okay? And then your logical sense and your professional skills. And on top of this, all right, to execute your professional skills, all right, you need to actually know your role. The role is actually under the professional skills. This is your task. All right, this is practically the task that you will find inside your requirements. Tasks are practical tasks. Usually you'll ask to prepare like reports, draft a section of the reports, prepare slides for presentation and supporting notes. Okay, prepare information to be put inside the slides together with the notes. Right? These are basically some of the tasks. And you are supposed to draft a memo or briefing notes. Okay, if you refer to the ACCA website, you will see, okay, you will have the impact of effective communication for SBL. That would help you, all right, to know your task well. Okay. Okay, what I've done here is actually, okay, this is an examination of question analysis whereby, all right, what I look at is only just the tasks that are being asked to perform. Okay, these are your roles. Okay, you should know your roles, and at the same time, okay, that roles comes together with the task. So by looking at the specimen 1, specimen 2, specimen 3, and September 2018 and December exam, all right, so roughly you'll see that, okay, you'll find that in section 1, okay, in question 1 for this specimen 1 is like asking you to prepare a consultancy report, and at the same time, because they have few questions there, okay, few requirements, the breakdown of the requirements, you also have, okay, they also have candidates to prepare information for the slides and supporting notes, and they also ask them to draft a concise section of a consultancy reports. And then for specimen 2, you'll find that they are asked to prepare briefing notes. Specimen 3, a report. And then for September 2018 is also briefing paper. And then for December 2018 is also preparing briefing notes and prepare a report. So if you notice that the tasks are almost similar. So you need to know what are briefing paper or briefing notes, okay? You need to know how to prepare a report. All this requires format, all right? There's a difference between preparing that particular report and drafting the section of that consultancy report, all right? Here, you are not asked to actually, are you asked to actually prepare a full report here? No, you're not asked to prepare a full report. You are just asked to prepare, to draft a section of that particular consultancy report. So when it is a section of the consultancy report, it means you don't have to have the to or whatever, okay, to or from, all right? So you may need to just have a heading, say just put that this is a draft, okay, section of consultancy report, all right? Then you will have your requirements, breakdown of your requirements, okay, in answering that particular section. So some ask you to prepare a briefing paper. So you need to know the format, the full format of briefing paper, prepare a report, a full format of the reports, definitely, all right? And question number 2, still a draft section here, and then you have prepare reports for question, specimen 2, and you are asked to draft a letter to the chairman. So you actually need to know, okay, how to write a letter to the chairman, all right? You must know your role, okay, so that you'll be able to know how to construct this particular sentence and how to actually write a letter to your chairman. Prepare briefing note, all right, and then preparing a memo, and then prepare a draft press release. Okay, sometimes you may need to prepare a draft press release, all right? This one is usually for the media. Okay, let's see if they want to address the media. So you need to actually help your CEO if he's the one who's actually supposed to be doing that press statement. So you need to actually have some press release after that, all right? So here you see that again, specimen 2, 3, specimen 3, exam, September exam, and then December exam, whereby you will actually have, okay, some tasks that you're supposed to be preparing. Mostly you'll find that reports are common that you need to actually do, all right? Briefing notes, and then you'll have what? Preparing of slides, okay? Presentation slides with accompanying notes. Sometimes they call it as what? Briefing notes. And then you'll have like confidential memo, okay? Sometimes you have to prepare a summary paper, okay? And you have to prepare a briefing paper. Basically here you see it in September 2018, okay? Question number 3, there's a breakdown there that requires them to do several different tasks, all right? And same goes to the December 2018 exam. Their students are required to actually write a report and prepare presentation slides. So overall, okay, when you look at this particular task analysis, overall, okay, there are common tasks that you should be able to perform, all right? The common task that every accountant must actually know is actually preparing reports, all right? Preparing briefing notes, okay? Whoever you are in the organization, you may need to present certain things, so you may need to prepare slides and the accompanying notes. All right. But when it comes to project management, perhaps it's a little bit different here. When it comes to specimen number 2, you are asked to write a business case. Why? Perhaps the execution of this particular strategy requires them to use project management. So when it requires this particular company, right, that's the real co-trust to use project management. So you need to know what is required under project management. So among the things that's required is, one thing definitely is business case. And then definitely, okay, once you get that particular approved, you can justify the stakeholders, you'll be actually producing the project initiation document. All right. So you need to know the format for this. Okay, basically that is, this one are something like is slightly different from the rest. So specimen 2 asks you to do this particular business case and project initiation. This is a sample layout and format. All right. So this is your report. Let's say this is a report. So at the top of your report, so you may want to have you need to have this. Okay, your title, report writer. That means if you're preparing it, that means you should actually putting it there. So what are you going to write there? It depends on your role. All right. Who are you? Because you are going to prepare it, and when you prepare, you are preparing it based on the role that is actually being given to you. Whether you are a financial controller, whether you are an internal auditor, all right? So it's supposed to be you there, all right? And then the report recipient, that's your audience, who's supposed to be actually looking at this particular, receiving these reports. Is it board of directors, or is it your whoever your superior is? So that's where the report recipient is, and then the date. Okay. If let's say the question were to give you the date to be used, then you use the date that's been given there, right? And let's say if you were no dates actually being found, you may want to put the date of the exam. All right. You may have a brief introduction or okay, summarizing its scope, terms of reference, okay, information that you'll be using, and then you'll have your finding the points where you have your headings. Okay. If you still remember the task that you have just now, and definitely that particular task asks you to discuss on something or to analyze something. Whatever that something there, okay, is actually supposed to be the headings of your findings here. So it's best to actually put the whatever action that you're supposed to be doing for in answering your requirements, that should be the best headings that you're going to have here. All right. For example, let's say if they ask you to actually analyze the financial and non-financial issues, so your headings, if it's a report, then what you should have inside here be, your heading will be financial issues. Again, you have your findings there, and then after that, you have your non-financial issues as another heading inside there, right? So you'll have your recommendations and conclusions. Usually for a report, it's written in the first person, I, we, or our, right? So the next part here, this is a sample and layout of the format as well. Okay, this is your memorandum, a memo. Okay, usually you have 2 from, date, and subject. Okay. So it's good to refer the recipients as you, and you emphasize points by paragraph headers. And this one again, it depends on your requirement. Okay, like I mentioned to you just now, right? If it's in form of similar to your report just now, if it's, they talk about financial and non-financial that you're supposed to be discussing there, then that should be your heading. Okay, you're supposed to be finishing with a conclusion or recommendation. Okay, definitely it's not yours faithfully here. This is a letter. Definitely will have address of the sender, date, okay. It's written, the correct recipient's name and the address. Okay, there you have your introductory paragraph explaining the reasons why the letter is written. It has to be written in a clear and logical flow. So the content and the tone should be appropriate to the audience. Okay, you are supposed to be avoiding the complex terminology. Continue from the letter just now. Okay, it should be written in the first and second person. Okay, I or you, I and you. Okay, I and you. We, yours, or something like that. All right. Then you will have a concluding paragraph. What you have inside your concluding paragraph will be re-emphasizing the purpose of the letter. All right. Drawing the threads of the content together. That means putting all the things that you have mentioned together. It's like some sort of like concluding it, all right, summarizing it, all right. Okay, you may want to have, okay, something like inviting the recipient for further action, all right, or you want them to get in touch with you. You may have that, okay, at the end of this particular letter under your concluding paragraph. Okay, this is speech or statement at a meeting. It should be in a form that is easy to read out. All right. Begin with a formal introduction, like welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Provide an overview of what you'll be covering. All right. So it has to be case related. All right. Definitely, when you use this particular format, the content that you're going to put in, okay, into all these particular formats that we have gone through. All right. It has to be contextual. It means it has to be case related. All right. Again, I emphasize here that, okay, it must not have any, bullet points. And then end your speech or your statement at the meeting by having thank you for listening. I now open the floor to questions. Okay, that means it's a proper speech format that you have to actually show when you answer that particular question, in case that you are asked to do a speech or doing a statement, making a statement at a meeting. All right. Briefing notes usually is used at a board meeting or to inform external stakeholders, okay, of something. Okay. Begin with key points, definitely. Okay. You may want to inform that later, okay, on the background information, or maybe you have appendix together with it. Okay, you should be writing in third person, referring to the directors. All right. directors of the company. Make sure that your points are succinct. I mean, it has to be brief and clear, all right? Short paragraph, highlighting key points with headers. And you must make sure that you're able to write it with good grammar, all right? I'm sure you all out there are very good actually in English language, definitely. As compared to us here in Malaysia, I think there are more, they speak more Malay language rather than English. So sometimes that I have to actually, make sure that they write properly. So I usually coach them in writing every sentence because their main language is actually not English. So they have difficulties in doing that. And I'm sure all of you there in Pakistan are much better off in English as compared to us here. So you should be able to pass very well, okay? With flying colors, don't worry. Okay, this is an example of press and website statement, all right? Your first paragraph emphasize on the key points, and you must have the background information, okay, later in the statement or in the appendices. You must have a clear explanation of the situation on the situation the company wants to clarify or the case the board wish to make. And then it has to be a third person narrator. Usually it's like the company, whatever the name of the company is. Okay, it's not I, it's not you. Sometimes you may find that you might need to do some management narratives in annual reports. Okay, usually perhaps preparing of chairman statements. Okay, you may have like corporate governance statements. Sometimes you might have environmental statements, things like that, right? So you have to clearly introduce the purpose of that particular statement. And then you have to actually write, okay, narrative or something, sentences that clearly supports that particular purpose. It has to be in a clear structure with separate points, okay, being distinguished. So this is what management narratives in an annual report is, okay. An example is that you can open up an annual report, see how chairman statements actually being written, or any management statement, any corporate governance statements that's being written there. Okay, that's a good example actually to see what management narratives in annual reports are. What are question verbs? Next part is the question verbs. What do you think of question verbs? It's to make sure you understand exactly what is being asked. It's an instruction for you. The action that you need to perform, okay, tells you what to do and how to do it, all right? So basically it's answering the question. And then at the same time as well, question verbs guides you on what information that you're supposed to be looking for when you go through your exhibits, okay? And how you are going to put and connect your points together and how answers should be written. So basically, question verbs helps you in that sense, all right? Again, as I mentioned earlier, that when you put your points together and answer the requirements of the question, it should reflect the professional skills being tested. These are some of the examples of the question verbs that you may find this in the ACCA website. Okay. for question verbs. Okay, you'll find it in the, you can type in the ACCA website. Okay, question verbs. This will appear, all right, or answering techniques. Okay, you'll find that these are the verbs that you will actually find. These are the common ones that I put here: analyze, all right, recommend, evaluate, explain, all right. These are the describe, discuss. So these are the basic ones that you may find inside that particular question verbs, all right. So this is the analysis on the verbs that you can find inside the, from specimen 1 until December 2018 question, all right. These are the common ones that you will find: analysis, evaluation, explain, highlighting, identifying, construct, okay, discuss, assess, compare, contrast, identify, briefly discuss, recommend, critically evaluate, okay, review or justify, consider, critically evaluate, how, criticize. Okay, these are among the verbs that you will find inside this particular analysis. What's the purpose of doing this? Okay, I ask my students usually to do this, okay, so that, okay, what I usually ask them is that, okay, once they have done this particular analysis, they can see the common action that they are supposed to be doing, and I want them to get themselves familiarized with these particular verbs. Okay, by going through the ACCA question verbs, at least they know what they are supposed to be doing. So every time that they answer the question and every time that they see all these verbs, the first thing that I will ask them is that, what are you supposed to do? Okay, so when you evaluate, what are you supposed to be doing when you evaluate? What does the question verbs tells you? What does that particular question verbs in the ACCA website tells you? I make sure that they print it out, and I make sure that they are always bring these particular question verbs together with them. Every time that they want to answer the question, I will ask them to refer to that particular question verb, and then, okay, tell me how they're supposed to be answering that particular question using that particular question verb. So it has to be together with you all the time, right? Because the moment that you practice and you keep on referring to that particular question verb, eventually it will sink inside you and you will be familiarized with that particular question verb. And the moment that you see that requirement, all right, asking you to discuss on something, you will know what is expected out of you, and you know what to look for, and you know how to write it down. Okay, so that's the purpose on why that you need to actually understand this particular question, but it's an instruction for you. Okay, so understanding these verbs, okay, will give you a very clear instruction. So if you don't understand the question verbs, then you wouldn't know what to look for. So it's going to be very difficult for you to answer the question. All right. Okay, the next part here that I'm going to cover will be the professional skills. If you still remember the slides that you have earlier on, that is on the SBL knowledge and syllabus coverage, where you have the diagram, the ACCA diagram, slides number 13. All right, on the leadership, governance, strategy, risk, and suddenly on the side that you will find, okay, you have professional skills. What are those professional skills? These are the skills that ACCA is actually testing you, whether you are able to actually demonstrate all these skills, okay, when you answer the examination question. Okay, as an ACCA graduate, right, let's say, or affiliate, I would say, okay, by the time that you go out, you should be able to practice this particular skill. Okay, you should be able to demonstrate this skill at your workplace. All right, because when it comes to communication, inform, persuade, and clarify, all right, you need to be able to demonstrate this. I'll go into detail on this particular professional skills of this. All right, let me just give you actually what they are first. You'll have commercial acumen, all right, that demonstrate awareness, use judgment, right, and show insight. And then you have analysis, where you are asked to investigate, inquire, and consider. And you have skepticism, to probe, question, and challenge. And you have evaluation, to assess, estimate, and appraise. What you have to do, okay, in order for you to demonstrate this particular commercial acumen? What does it mean by showing awareness of a wider business and external factors affecting business? What does it mean by the use of commercially sound judgment and insight to resolve issues and exploit opportunities? What is it? How do you think that you are able to demonstrate this? Commercial acumen, okay, is actually to how far you are able to know, okay, how external factors can actually affect the business. For example, all right, when we are talking about political issues that are affecting a business, you need to actually demonstrate to what extent that you know the impact of that particular political issues on the business by looking at perhaps some impact or changes in terms of the company's revenue. Or maybe it has some impact on the decision making. And if you have some solutions, you need to be able to justify those particular solutions, and that solution must be a solution that makes sense. If you are looking into let's say you have analyzed that particular position of that particular organization, okay, that particular company, and you find that, okay, they don't have much cash. And they have lots of debts. And if you were to suggest something, make sure it meets that particular situation. If you don't have cash, you don't tell them and ask them to actually employ more staff, for instance. It doesn't make sense. Where are they going to have cash to actually pay for the staff? So these are the things that you must have in mind, that when you suggest something, it has to make sense. If, let's say, the company is in difficult financial position and they don't have an expert in certain areas to execute the whatever strategy that they have in mind, then you are not supposed to actually suggest to them to actually hire an expert. You need to find actually much more convincing way to actually tell them to do something, but it has to be something that makes sense. I don't have a money, but you ask me to buy a car. That doesn't make sense, isn't it? So it's the same thing for a company. The company doesn't have good is not in a good financial health, all right? Liquidity is really declining, profitability is declining, and yet you ask them to hire someone. So you need to actually give them some practical solutions. For instance, something that doesn't require them to actually use more money. So this is something that is what commercial acumen is all about. Something that you need to demonstrate there through how you write and how you have understood all the factors that are affecting the business. If there are opportunities that you think that they're supposed to actually exploit, then you should actually tell that to the organization. But when you ask them to exploit certain opportunities as well, you must look at the company's strength and weakness. Are they able to do it? So if they're not able to do something, then don't suggest it. Suggest something that they are able to do it, and it makes sense for them to actually embark into it with their current position. So this is what commercial acumen is all about. So the next skill is analysis. What do you do here? You need to actually investigate. All right? What does it mean by thoroughly investigate? And research information from a variety of sources and logically process it with a view to considering it for recommending appropriate action. Okay. When you are investigating, what do you do? When you investigate, I always tell my students, when you investigate, what are you looking for? You are looking for evidence. In order for you to get that particular evidence, you need some information. Where are you going to get it from? That's where you need all your exhibits. Relevant exhibits from the questions that you need to actually look at it, and you need to actually investigate and how you are able to actually do some relevant analysis from that particular information. All right. And then after that, what you do is from that particular information that you have, okay, you are going to connect all your evidence together. For example, all right, if you are asked to analyze the financial situation of that particular company, before you are able to actually make some consideration or any recommendation for appropriate action, you need to actually look at that for the financial position of that particular company by doing some analysis. Why do you need to do that particular analysis? When you do this particular analysis, all right, you are going to find out whether the financial situation is good or not. How are you going to find out whether it's good or not? You need some evidence. From where? From the financial statement. So what do you do with the financial statement? Financial statement must tell you something. So you have to analyze that particular financial statement. Right? So you need to do some analysis on that. So when you do analysis on this particular financial statement, all right, you may need to actually apply your technical skills, your knowledge on what? Perhaps some ratio analysis on the profitability or liquidity. Once you get all this particular information, okay, what you are going to do is you are going to put it together. What is it that you get out of that particular information on profitability and liquidity? Does it tells you something? So it has to be something that you have already performed, all right? And this particular two evidence on the profitability and liquidity just now tells you about that particular organization. And from there, you will be able to actually look at whether their financial situation is actually good or not good. If it's not good, maybe you can recommend something to help them. If it's good, then you may mention something else. All right? So when it comes to investigation, remember you need to actually find evidence. Then you have to put this evidence together to see whether it makes some senses. What kind of sense that can you get out of this particular evidence that you put together? Then you may consider of doing something about it. All right, so this is what investigate, inquire, and consider is all about, and which reflects the analysis skill. So I'll be using, okay, later on, I'll be using the September 2018 questions, okay, to demonstrate how you're supposed to be writing, okay, and reflecting this particular analysis skill. All right, this one I'm just going through with you what they are. Communication skill is expressing yourself clearly and convincingly through an appropriate while being sensitive to the needs of the intended audience. So what it means here is that you're supposed to be expressing your thoughts clearly. That means when you explain something, it has to be explained clearly so that your audience understand what you are telling them. When I say telling here, telling is in the form of writing. All right? So when you are asked to explain, even if you converse, you talk to someone asks you to explain something, right? So the way that you're going to explain to that particular person, it has to be clear so that he or she understood. Same goes to writing. It has to be written clearly. And if you need to actually present it in a proper manner, whereby it's easier for your audience to understand, you may do so. Because why? All right? When it comes to communication skills, you may need a medium for you to be able to actually convey your message clearly. And most of the time, in the examination questions, you are asked to present. So you're supposed to be preparing a slide. All right? And then you have some briefing notes or accompanying notes attached to it. But always remember, putting something clearly doesn't mean it has to be just a slides. There are times that, okay, perhaps ACCA may not have tested you yet, but most of the time when you look at all these particular tasks, you are asked to prepare slides. But don't be surprised that you might be able to actually express something clearly, okay, by having some other diagrams. Those are medium for clear communication. Pie charts, for instance, a diagram, a pie chart that talks about certain output, okay, your histogram. So those are the kind of medium that can actually help you to explain something clearly. All right, perhaps you have some data that best being presented in the form of a pie chart. Perhaps it's best presented in the form of a diagram. By all means, those are communication, right? Okay, the last part here that I mentioned to you, when it comes to communication, you must remember that when you explain something, don't let a person who reads your explanation, okay, asking you back, so what? Why? Or something like that. So if people can question you back on your explanation, it means that your explanation is not clear. So if you are able to write something and when someone reads your explanation and they are satisfied, then they don't ask further question like so what, or why, or how, then it means that your explanation is actually clear. This is rather difficult for my students. I don't know about all of you. But when it comes to skepticism, all right, these are the skills that you should actually be able to acquire. And this particular skepticism is actually requires you to probe, question, and challenge information. What it means here is that, okay, when you read the exhibits, especially when it comes to evaluating or reviewing the internal control system of an organization, all right, if you were to read the exhibits or information in the case study, you'll find that, okay, they do have that particular internal control system. And sometimes when you read through, you find that it seems that there's no flaws in that particular internal control system. But remember, if you are applying these particular skepticism skills, you are not supposed to be like taking it on the, okay, lightly. You're supposed to be actually questioning back. If this is the case, then what will happen if this happens? Okay, that means you're questioning them back. So you have to actually go back to the issues that's happening in the organization, and then you have to actually tie it back to the, for example, the internal control that is actually being mentioned in any of those exhibits. Let's say you want to see the effectiveness of the internal control system, all right? Some organization, they do have procedures in place, but the next thing that you should actually be questioning them is that if they have procedures in place, why is this thing taking place? That means you are trying to probe further on and questioning and challenging them. If they have this in place, why is this happening? If you say you have a good internal control system, why do you think that you still have revenues that are not recorded, for example? Okay, so you have to tie back to the issues. We will go into detail on this one, okay, the moment that we do the questions later, all right? Evaluation skill is actually testing you on how you assess situations, all right, proposals and arguments in a balanced way. That means using your professional and ethical judgment to predict future outcomes, all right? And then the consequences as a basis for sound decision making. So basically, under evaluation, okay, you are supposed to be assessing, estimating, and appraising. What does this mean? What do you think that it means? Assessing, estimating, and appraise. It means that you have to actually, when you assess, you are supposed to be looking at it, the issues from different perspective. And from there on, you need to make some estimation. When I say estimate, not necessarily it has to be quantitatively, but sometimes estimating can be done qualitatively. And the next thing that you need to do is you need to appraise. That means looking into the worth of that particular situation or that particular project or that particular strategy. All right? So basically, this is what evaluation is. So question verbs and professional skills, they have to be together. Okay, because actions that you perform reflects whether you are demonstrating this particular professional skills. That's the reason why, okay, I'm really emphasizing on question verbs and professional skills tonight, all right, as compared to other things. And the way that you think, the way that you look at your SBL, okay, these are the things that you need to actually acquire. You have to look at SBL holistically, okay, basically. And if you have questions that you want to ask, you can actually post the questions. But before that, okay, let us have a look at a glance on September 2018 question. All right. I hope you can see this particular question. All right. Okay, this is the overview. Okay, it's on Coforge Construction. All right, it's a listed construction company. It has a head office in the capital city of Lamdahasa, all right, in the country of Omegalan. Okay. What do you get from this particular first paragraph? What do you think that you can get from this particular paragraph? First paragraph here. What does it tell you? What do you think? This is a listed construction company. So they're actually giving you the, what does listed construction company means? What do you think what it means? Listed construction company. All right. So when it's a listed construction company, it tells you about the ownership. All right. So when it tells you about ownership, okay, it means that this can be related to corporate governance. All right. You're talking about the structure of this particular company. Definitely when it's listed, there'll be what? There'll be shareholders. Okay. So this is a public, perhaps a public companies. Okay. Then after that, they're talking about what? They're talking about this country has two neighboring countries. Alpha and Beta. Alpha and Beta. All right. And they mention clearly here that generally flat. This is a demographic factors. What does it tell you? So they're talking about that this particular two neighboring countries is actually having a flat land, and then after that, okay, so Alfia and Omegaland, that means Omegaland is where CC is situated, and Alfia is the neighboring country, which is actually also having a flat land. That means they have similar demographic factors. And when they have similar demographic factors, I mean geographical factors, so it means that they have some similarities in terms of how they operate, all right? So that means operating in Omegaland might be the same as how they would operate in Alfia, all right? But after that, they did mention to you about Beetle here. large range of mountains. So it should tell you something. There's two different demographic factors here. Why are they mentioned about Beetle here? It's also another neighboring country, which actually separates its eastern region from the rest of the country. All these three countries use the same currency. So what does this tell you? It tells you that there's no exchange rate. They are using the same currency. So you shouldn't have mentioned about any exchange rate in this particular picture. Okay, no exchange losses or whatever it is. Then after that, they're talking about CC comprises of 50% executive directors. This is the governance. 50% independent, non-executive directors. Equal balance of executive and non-executive directors. Perhaps you can go back to your technical knowledge and look into the best composition of board of directors. Okay, should it be having more independent non-executive directors, or should it have more executive directors? Okay, which one is better? So at least that particular technical knowledge is already at the back of your head. That means, and in your mind, okay, you know that you're supposed to be looking at this. And this particular question, okay, definitely may ask you on that. All right. And they tell you that who are the chairman, the chief executive, and senior non-executive director. And then they give you the nature of business of CC. What they do is they provide support services, upgrade electricity networks, road renewal and maintenance. Okay. This is their core business, right? In all three countries. And they did also mention to you that it has also undertaken road construction projects of increasing size and complexity. Okay, on top of telling you that what the core business is, they did also tell you about they have undertaken road construction projects of increasing size and complexity. And they say that most of the time they have already done this in Omegalan. Okay, the biggest project is around ring road around the city of Lamdahasa. So CC has also started to develop a portfolio in Alfia. That means they have done some projects there. The biggest development there being a road between Free City and Tau Town, which was completed in 2010. Okay, remember that, okay, earlier on they did mention about, okay, the demographic or geographical factors in both countries. They have similarity in terms of flatland, right? So why this is crucial is that, okay, because the next particular sentence says what, to date, CC has not carried out any road construction projects in Beetle. They have not done it in Beetle, all right? However, there are opportunities has arisen for CC to tender for construction of a major road in Beetle, which would be the biggest project which CC has undertaken to date. What does this particular information tells you? It's a problem that they may be facing, all right? Why do I say that you may want to anticipate some of the problem that they might face? Because we're talking about flatland now to mountains. All right? Because early on, they did mention that Beetle has a large range of mountains. The Inardi Mountains, which separates its eastern region from the rest of the country. Whereas Alfia and Omeglon are actually a countryside that is generally flat. So for Omeglon to actually expand in Alfia, it wouldn't be much of a problem because of the similar nature in terms of the geographical factors. But when it comes to Beetle just now, all right, even though they have the opportunity, okay, to actually tender for construction of a major road in Beetle, okay, and this would be the biggest project that CC has undertaken to date. But remember, Beetle is a country that do have mountains. So building a road in places with mountains may not be as easy as flatland. All right. So as you read this particular overview, you should already have that in mind. And the following exhibits, you'll have exhibits number 1 that extracts from the most recent annual report of CC. Okay, when it comes to annual report, most likely that you have to do some analysis, all right? And then press release of the announcement of the new road in Beetle. Okay, remember CC actually did tender, okay, a contract for that particular project. This is a press release. Perhaps there's some information that you can get from here about that particular road construction. And then this is the forecast revenues and costs for the construction of the new road in Beetle, which you have to be very careful of, all right? How this particular forecast of revenues and costs are being constructed. Remember, okay, the experience that CC has is actually in Alfia and Omeglon, which is actually similar in nature. And now they're supposed to be actually forecasting for Beetle, which have got different geographical factors. So this may actually, give you some idea that, okay, they may have to anticipate more cost. So are they doing it correctly? And then the next thing that you have under Exhibit 4 is that outline contents of the project initiation PID, okay, document, and a summary of operational issue section of the PID. So that one actually gives you an exhibits about the project management they are embarking into. And then after that, they have transcript of the emergency meeting of CC's head office. And then they have exhibit number 6. What they have is a report on interview with Burton Vada, the Omeglon daily newspapers. Yes. So this is when you read, you can only gauge. You really don't know what's inside there until you read your requirements. Right? So when you read your requirements, this is what I meant just now. The case requirements as follows, and you will be told which role you are taking in each task. All right. So here, this is you. You are playing a role as Alex Larson, Senior Non-Executive Director of CC. So if you are the Senior Non-Executive Director of CC, are you actually employed by them? You are not an executive director, you are a non-executive director. So definitely you are not employed by them. All right. What happened now is that CC has already invited you to tender for the contract. Okay. And then what you are supposed to be, your CC's finance team has already drawn a financial forecast for the project. Okay, remember, you do have the exhibits that was mentioned earlier on that talks about the financial forecast revenues and costs for the construction of new road in Beetle. This one, right? So you know that you're supposed to be using exhibit 3 here. You are particularly concerned with whether CC will be able to fulfill the criteria stated by the Beetle's Transport Minister. So you are required to prepare a briefing paper. So this is actually your task. All right? Preparing a briefing paper is actually your task. For whom? For the board meeting. All right? And what's your question verb? Analyzes. What is it that you're supposed to be analyzing? It will be financial and non-financial issues. What kind of financial, non-financial issues? The financial and non-financial issues that will actually affect the final decision of whether to accept the contract to build the road in Beetle. You're not supposed to be recommending. All right, remember it is 18 marks. So if it's 18 marks, how much should you be writing? Remember, this is testing you on them analysis skills. All right. So what's important is what you have learned today is your verbs. Okay. This is your verbs. Analyzes. Your task. Okay. Preparing a briefing paper. Your audience. Okay. That is for the board meeting. And then you holding the role as what? Alex Larson, the senior non-executive director of CC. Okay. If you know the job of a non-executive director, you would know what Alex Larson should be doing, because now Alex Larson is you. All right. So if you have a rough idea on what non-executive director is doing, then it's easier for you to actually know, okay, the kind of analysis and the way that you are going to look into the financial and non-financial issues, okay, that you are supposed to be writing inside your briefing paper. Okay, this particular briefing paper is actually for board meeting, and you are going to be inside that particular meeting. So what is it that you are going to put inside? Okay. So the detail of this, okay, I'll be covering it tomorrow. And the same goes to this, okay, we just glance through first what we have here, and I will go through this and we'll construct some sentence tomorrow and how you're going to construct it, okay, to reflect your analysis skill. When you analyze this and write, what are you supposed to be having it there, okay? And then when you look at this roughly, this is discusses. the verb that you're going to have here, remember this particular briefing paper, okay, comprised of two things that you must have inside there. Part A is on this and part B will be on this. So your briefing paper will be one briefing paper, but inside your briefing paper, all right, you will have two things that you must have inside there in order for you to actually get the professional marks. So one briefing paper comprised of two things. Part A, where you are going to analyze and having financial and non-financial issues, okay, that will affect your decision whether to accept the contract to build the road in Beetle. And then the next one will be, you will have a part where you discuss the difficulties, okay, of CC may face in fulfilling the criteria stated by Desmond Otiano, the Transport Minister of Beetle. So that means discussing the difficulties of CC may face, okay, in fulfilling the criteria stated by Desmond Otiano. So you need to find out what's the criteria. You will only know what's the criteria after you have read your exhibits. And this one is actually testing you on commercial acumen. So if you have any questions and if you like to pose any questions, okay, you may ask. Okay, we have another like half an hour for us to actually, for me to handle the Q&A. Anyone? All right, some of you are asking actually, how do I access your WhatsApp group? All right, ma'am, could you please clarify the value chain area? All right, okay. You want to know about the value chain? What's the value chain? You don't understand what's the value chain? Okay. When it comes to value chain, all right, we are talking about the, if you can still remember your Potter's value chain, okay, it talks about the process of how you actually turn your raw material into your finished goods. Okay, not just turning your raw material into finished goods, but also to actually make sure that that particular finished goods reaches your customers. And at the same time, the customers actually is actually willing to pay for the goods that you are selling it to them. All right. So when it comes to value chain, remember it starts off with, in analyzing your value chain, if you use Potter's value chain, that means you are going to actually look into inbound logistic, right, outbound, and then towards the end you have your you're going to actually distribute and market it, all right, and then after that you have your after sales service. This is your main, this is actually your main activities, okay, because a company's main activities is actually to turn their raw materials into finished goods and making sure they're able to market it, and then not just marketing it, they also have after sales service. All right. So in order for you to do all that particular primary activities, you need your supporting activities. right? So your raw materials can't just appear just like that. Your raw materials need to be purchased. And in order to do the purchase, you need people from the purchasing department. Those are your supporting. All right, I hope it's clear on that. And then if let's say you want to process it, you actually need assistance as well. All right, from departments that can help you to change that particular raw materials into finished goods. For example, like the infrastructures and the facilities. So you may need that, good machines, things like that. And then after that, you're talking about distribution. Okay, those are value chains. What else? Okay, I'm trying to okay. Okay, you say that the map is a bit confusing, the one with all those particular web you're talking about. All right. What I meant with that particular web is that, okay, the way that you are going to look at it, all right, is that you must always have in mind that each and every topic that you have, okay, are all connected. If you're looking into strategy, you cannot just be looking into strategy only. They are tied up with other topics as well. So you can't actually look it in isolation. All are linked together. That's what I meant. All right? All are linked up together. Because if you look into strategy, there are three parts in strategy. You have strategic position, you have strategic options, and then you have execution. All right? So each and every of those particular strategy, okay, are actually being tied up with all the areas. If you say about strategic positioning looks into the internal and external factors. When you look into internal and external factors, you're talking about environmental factors as well, and you have your internal factors. And these factors, okay, will affect you, and these factors carries risk with them. And that's where you may need to look into risk as well, because why? You want to know to what extent you are affected by it. And that's where you need to assess those particular risks, right? And at the same time, okay, when you look into your strategic choices, all right, you have your option choices, risk come in again, all right, because each of those choices that you have are coming together with risk. I know it's quite difficult for you to actually just listen, okay, without looking at how it's actually being drawn and explained, because this is also the first time that I'm actually talking to all of you which are outside there and I don't even know who you are, okay, and I'm alone here. Okay, so I will try my best and I'll give you some of the contact number later, okay, my contact, so that you'll be able to contact me directly, all right, and able to actually communicate much better. And then, okay, you want me to tell you more about the professional skills, okay? Okay, tomorrow I'll be covering specifically on professional skills, all right? So just get ready your September 2018 paper with you. Hopefully you can actually read it through first, all right? So I'll touch this in detail tomorrow. Okay, I find it difficult to provide answers to questions that requires us to recommend, all right? So hopefully I can help you out tomorrow as well here, all right? Okay. One of the big problem of matching exhibit with question, how to overcome these particular issues. To overcome these particular issues, wait until tomorrow. All right. I'll be covering with you a lot in our day 2, day 3, and day 4. I'll be looking into, okay, all these particular questions and how you're going to link your exhibits together. And remember, in answering SBL, all right, by now you should actually know, okay? By now you should actually know, okay, what are the technical knowledge that you are supposed to be acquiring from day one. And then I have also some questions here. I wonder what are core syllabus areas in SBL. All right, the core syllabus areas in SBL is actually your strategy, your leadership, all right, governance and risk. And it's actually being supported by other areas from your technology is your support, okay, for the core syllabus area. And then your innovation are core support as well. And then if you still remember the slides that I gave you earlier on, okay, where you have the syllabus coverage from the ACCA, you have leadership, governance, strategy and risk. Okay, leadership and governance are the core area, all right, and then you have your strategy and then you have your risk. You are supported by technology and data analytics, organizational control and audit, finance and planning and decision making, and then innovation, performance excellence and change management. All right. Okay, I'll try to write on the slides. Thank you. Okay, I'll try tomorrow. All right. I hope you can see what I've written here. So you want to know what's the difference between financial controller and then management accountant. All right. So your main focus, all right, when it comes to financial controller, all right, they usually lead the accounting executive in an organization. They provide financial leadership, okay, and then they provide this financial information informing accounting strategies. Focusing is more on the financial accounting, all right. They must be very skillful in financial analysis, all right, and they must be able to establish and execute internal control over the company's accounting and finance procedures. So this is what financial controller does. But when it comes to management accountant, all right, theirs is more on preparing reports for the routine of financial and operational decision making. They do forecasting of future business and events. All right, they plan for long term and they formulate corporate strategy and they've developed management information systems. So that's what actually management accountant does. They provide necessary information for decision making. All right. They also look into how to maintain the optimum and maintaining optimum capital structure. They look into how they participate in management process. Whereas financial is more focusing on the financial analysis, looking into the internal controls and all the accounting and financial procedures. That's the difference between them. Okay, this question you're talking about, okay, whether to understand concepts, okay. Yes, the answer should be case specific, definitely. Yes, understanding concept is important, but at the same time, okay, you should be able to apply the concepts to the case study. If you are able to do that, all right, you're asking whether you should be spending more time in practicing questions and understanding concept from the study text. Understanding concepts and not able to apply it in the context of answering the exam question is of no use. All right? So you need to be able to use that particular concept in applying in the context of the case. I'll be actually covering this a lot later. All right, what are your cases? Since you have already asked on this, whether to practice more or is it okay understanding the concept more? In order for you to be able to actually apply the concept and help you to actually answer the question, yes, definitely you need to practice, right? But at the same time, you need to read a lot of business articles, all right? I think ACCA website to provide you with some free app, all right, where you can actually read a lot of business articles. That's under accounting and business. You can actually download the free app from either from your Android or actually from your Google Store or your Apple Store. Okay, that would help you a lot, okay, in looking into how the concept are actually being applied in the context. All right. Okay, if you notice that, all right, when we are doing strategic business leader, okay, you can actually divide the roles into various type of roles, all right. Most of the roles that you are going to actually execute here, okay, under strategic business leader will be the role of a top management. Okay. How to write in different roles. I will show you how to do that later. I'll share you the WhatsApp group number. Don't worry, okay? Okay, Mira, noted. Right. I will try to write on the slides. Okay, you want to know more about ratios. Okay, among the ratios that you should actually know is that profitability, liquidity. All right, those are the common ones. Gearing ratio, efficiency ratios. Okay, those are the basic ratios that you should actually know what it is all about. Profitability talks about the profit of the organization. Okay, how to what extent is profitable. It's looking into the relationship between your revenue, your cost, and then your net profit, your gross profit, and your net profit. All right, and then when you talk about liquidity, you're talking about whether you are able to meet your current obligations. That's where you are going to actually look into your current ratio or your quick ratio. And then gearing, looking into your financing, whether you are highly geared, okay, using more debts or equity, right? So usually it's 50, some would go for 50%, 50%, okay? That means 50% equity and 50% will be on debt financing. So if let's say, okay, you are the way that you finance your business is more of equity, it means that you issue more shares. So your debt financing is actually low. So that actually tells you that, okay, if you were to have a new strategy, okay, most likely that you may want to consider debt financing. And in order to consider debt financing, that's where you need to evaluate between the two, equity and debts. So here you need to know the advantages and the disadvantages of this particular type of financing. All right. All right. Okay. Listed company, yes, it's listed on stock exchange. All right. Yes, you're talking about the questions just now. Yes. Okay, going from a flat area, moving into, okay, constructing road at the mountain area definitely is going to be not easy. All right. That is something that you may have to consider. So if it's not easy, if it's mountain, so you can gauge that, okay, they have to incur extra costs. Moving into another country, yes, is growing, but it may not be as good. All right, they are growing, but it may not be as good because they might have to incur more costs. If they don't have much money, that means they might not be able to proceed. Okay, this is something that, okay, I hope some of you can actually hear it clearly because I don't think so. There's a problem with the mic here. What does appraise tells us in evaluation? So appraise actually tells us, okay, the worth of that particular project, the worth of that particular option. Is it worth going for it? So you need to actually, that's what appraise means. After considering several things, whether it's worth going for it or not. All right. So you need to actually mention how worth it is. All right. You are not going to be deducted for incorrect grammar. All right. If, let's say, will marks be deducted for wrong sentence framing? If, let's say, if it's not major and the marker understands what you are trying to tell them, you still get marks for it. We'll cover that tomorrow. Some of you are asking which exhibit part B falls into. We'll cover that later. All right. Okay, I think most of you, all of you are actually anxiously looking into how you are going to address the exam. Okay, on the exam, what are you supposed to be doing on the exam day? All right, so don't worry. All right, I will start covering things in detail tomorrow. All right. Actually, I was asked to give you some overview on what are the basic things that you should actually know tonight. But tomorrow I'll be covering it much more detail. Some of you ask whether I can arrange or show us how to write an ideal solution by showing the professional skill. So what I'm going to show you is that it's not really an ideal solution, but it is actually a way how you're going to write to reflect your professional skills. I'll do that tomorrow. All right. If you're not that good, okay, some of you ask, how many points should I write for different question? Is it 1 mark per point? If you're not that good in connecting your points together, then you should be writing like 1 mark per point. But if you are good in, let's say you have several points that you're able to connect it together, then you'll be able to actually get 2 marks per sentence. Is it necessary to mention models learned while answering? Nope. No models should be mentioned. If possible, if you are able to write or answer without a model, it should be fine, right? Because in workplace, okay, you're not supposed to be actually telling your boss, I'm using this model or I'm using that model, all right? Okay, tomorrow there'll be a lot more writing, I would say, okay, on the slides as compared to tonight, because I'm anticipating that you have done all your revisions. Okay, that's the reason why I did not actually write much on that. Okay, it's just to go through with you what's the necessary things that you should actually know. So hopefully by tomorrow, all right, okay, you will understand better. I'll try to do as much as possible, all right, in going through the specimens and their past years, but basically I'm just anticipating that we will actually be able to complete like 2 or 3. If we were to go through in detail, all right, because usually it takes me like 2 days to actually complete with my 2 students one particular exam, full exam paper. So my classes with them is actually like 2 to 3 hours. So usually I can actually finish going through one particular set of questions like 2 classes. All right. Also, you asking how, okay, if we are to write briefing paper, we should include both part A and B. So how would we tell the examiner that we have ended the answer for part A and started answering part B? By putting in your A and B. So that means your first part that you should have for you, you should answer, let's say 1A and 1B under one briefing paper. So your heading should be A. What's the heading for that? That should be answering your part A. And then once you are done with that, then if you're answering part B, then your next heading will be B. Then you will have your heading for B. Examiner will know that that's the answer for 2 parts. All right. I think that's all for tonight. So hope to see you all tomorrow then. Thank you.